Hi, everybody, and welcome to the OutMarket.Pro podcast. I'm Mark Stein, your host and head of OutMarket.Pro. Have you ever wondered what your pet was thinking or wish that you could have another moment with a deceased furry friend? In today's episode of OutMarket.Pro podcast, I'm excited to talk with Shannon Spring, a pet communicator and psychic medium. Shannon uses her unique skills to help people communicate with their pets and helps both people and their pets live happier lives, reduce suffering, and find the solutions to behavioral, emotional, and medical challenges. Welcome, Shannon. Glad to have you on the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'll try to remember you're a human during this conversation.
Good. I'll do my best to help you. So I'm a huge fan of Edgar Casey. Is it Elizabeth Montgomery? I'm digging that from the
from
psychic from way back. What? No.
From the show. Oh, okay.
No, it's not Elizabeth. That was Bewitched.
Yeah, Bewitched. Yeah.
There's another Montgomery, anyway, that was a psychic back in the 80s.
Yeah.
So glad to talk to you. And the first question has to be, how did you get into this line of work? When did you see that you had this skill, intuition? How did all this start with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a few different answers to this question, but I have to, first of all, give a shout out to your own psychic abilities, because right before we began, I was actually talking about Samantha from Bewitched. And I literally looked at my dogs and said, oh gosh, I wish I had Samantha from Bewitched abilities where I could just think about cleaning the house and it cleaned itself. So wow. There you go. And in that regard, Mark, we really are all connected. So, and we all do have our own abilities to different levels, of course. I was doing a lot of this as a child, and it was just normal to me. So having psychic abilities, having abilities to talk with animals. I went to a very strict Catholic school, and as you can imagine, they were not such a big fan of this. I was freaking my parents out. Them not really knowing how I was knowing things. It was a little bit unnerving. So mostly people talked me out of it, and my abilities went to sleep for a while, even though I was still doing them. It's a lot like Sleeping Beauty in the fairy tale. And I had to wait for the animal kingdom to come back and kiss them all awake. I awakened a lot of them through hypnosis, through getting sober, actually. That was a huge process for me in getting back to how I had been as a kid, both the joy within me and then also these abilities that I had, which are really, as you can imagine, a lot of fun.
Yeah, I could see how alcohol or any other drug abuse could really cloud that ability.
Absolutely. In fact, I had a client, a woman around in her 60s, and she was this is a great story. I didn't know we were going to be going in this direction, which is why I told you earlier that we have to be careful which rabbit hole we take me down. It was a very stormy day here in Sarasota. And all of a sudden I heard this message. When I tap my ear, that means I'm hearing something. And I heard, take your pool noodle, take your pool noodle. And I thought, why would I take my pool noodle to the beach? This doesn't make any sense, but I listened. I took my pool noodle to the beach. There was really nobody there but myself and this one other woman who's about, 500 feet away. And I heard, go talk to her, go talk to her. And I thought, no, I'm off duty. I just want to be on the beach, enjoy myself. So I made a deal with what I refer to as spirit, God, the universe, whatever you want to call it. And they said, go talk to her. I said, if she talks to me, it's fair game. So I walked in her direction. She playfully teased me. Why did I have a pool noodle with me on this very windy, stormy day? She said, do you have a death wish? I said, no, I don't. But somebody told me to bring a pool noodle. So I listened. We had a little chit chat. She told me that she was here on vacation, got a little bored, came down to the beach, had spent most of her time reading. Now, of course, I'm a big reader. I love to read. And I always ask people, what are you reading? And she answers with, I'm reading a book on how to choose a good medium. So I was like, you got to be kidding me. This is a phrase that I say very often. This is insane. You got to be kidding me. So she said, I'm reading a book on how to choose a good medium. And I said, well, I happen to be a psychic medium. She was very much missing her daughter and her dog in spirit, who had passed around the same time. I explained I'm a medium, and she said, oh gosh, I really want to believe, Shannon. I really want to believe, but I've been to a couple of mediums and they've really let me down. Now, of course, my ego gets up. We have to have a healthy ego to do this kind of work, to be confident in our abilities, what we see, hear, feel. That's a whole other conversation about who should or shouldn't be doing this work. And she said, there's only two things that I really need to know about my daughter to know that her life continues. And if somebody can answer that question, then I'll know for sure, and I'll stop doubting that her life continues. I said, well, I can do it, because I thought, there's no way I brought this pool noodle here to fail. So we go home, we have the conversation. I bring through her dog with flying colors, after she scheduled a session, of course. Then I bring through the two pieces of information from her daughter. The woman cries, she's relieved. We share a lot of laughter. And she said, well, I'll change the name here. Ask Susan why I never hear from her. Why doesn't she send me any messages? And the daughter showed me this, lifting her hand up and down, drinking. Yeah. And so to your point, yes. And the daughter said, tell her that it's not always happy hour somewhere. That expression, it's always happy hour, it's 5 o'clock somewhere. And every day her mom was pouring herself drinks and then would spend the rest of the night under the influence of alcohol, which was completely blocking out her connection to her daughter. All of our loved ones, whether they're furry or human, 2-legged, 4-legged, winged, scaled, finned, hooved, whatever, will try to get through to us through dreams, through other strangers like myself, in many, many different ways. And it doesn't mean that you can't enjoy a cocktail, or you can't, occasionally enjoy a 420 or whatever it is, but be very, very careful how much of you and your spirit is influenced by things that can block your connection.
Yeah. So it wasn't a judgmental thing from the daughter. It was just, you're blocking yourself from me.
Yes.
Because you're not.
Yeah.
Okay. And what's the connection of the noodle? Just because she was going to ask you about it?
Yes, because her mom, it was interesting. We were from a similar place up north in the Northeast. And it was such an odd choice, to see somebody on such a windy, the water here is usually very calm. And this was not a hurricane, nothing like that. It was just a super weird day energetically, where the water was very rough. And I was standing there with my pool noodle, and I happen to be a terrible swimmer. Like, I should not be out in the ocean without swimmies and 6 lifeguards around me. And I'm standing there with the pool noodle. So yeah, it was like a prop to give the mom something, to say. It was a conversation starter, basically. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Cool.
But loved ones are always trying to get our attention. And I have to be careful. A lot of the times I'll say, oh, one of my dogs sent me 13 pages of information. This is a true story. I just lost my dog Jack in January, and he sent me 13 pages of information that I've now added to an epilogue in my first book. Somebody else could sit there and say, God, I haven't even gotten one sign from my cat or my dog. So what I then go back to is just, it's not that they're not sending signs. You just might not be aware of them. You might not be receptive to them. You might not be acknowledging them. You might be dismissing them, whatever it is. You might be asking for one particular sign. And if they don't send you a red cardinal at 2 p.m. on a sunny day with a rainbow behind it, well, it doesn't count. And that's not fair. Let them send the signs in their own ways.
Mm-hmm. Are people who are more emotionally and mentally connected with their animals during life, are they usually more connected and pick up cues and communicate more after death?
Wow, I have never been asked that question. That is a fantastic question. Let me sit with that for a second. I'm thinking of somebody right now who is a hardcore skeptic. And interestingly, I work with their friend who happens to be a dog trainer, and the dog trainer and I regularly do animal communication all together. I've even done some animal communications for animals in his rescue. He's very, very in tune emotionally, loves the animals very much, but just refuses to believe. So whether or not he received signs that he would accept and believe, my bet is that he would most likely write them off. I think it's people that go through life with just enough of a window cracked open in their minds or just a little bit of the door open, that it's possible. All you really have to do, Mark, is just entertain the notion it's possible. That, I was at the Veg Fest in Tampa. I always say the other day, Mark, and it could be 20 years ago. So we'll just say the other day. And a group of police officers walked by me, and I had my huge animal communicator sign up. I have a pretty solid sense of humor about the work that I do. I have to. And the animals have a wicked sense of humor too. So it works very well together. And the cops walked by, and I poked at my sign. I said, "Officers, what do you think of this crazy pet psychic lady?" And they said, "Well, we like to keep an open mind," and they were very polite. And I said, no. I said, "Don't humor me." I said, "Have a seat. I'll do you one better. Let me prove it to you. This is real." And to their credit, one of the officers sat down, and I brought her dog in heaven, her sister in heaven, who had messages for her husband that was here and for her. And she was able to confirm it right on the spot. And her face, it was so phenomenal watching her face change from being polite and well-mannered, not wanting to hurt the crazy pet psychic's feelings, to, "Whoa, you're really real." She kept saying, repeat, "You're really, really, really real." I said, "Well, go tell your friends, go tell the other cops that whatever, crimes they're committing, I'll know."
Yeah. So the part of your, well, let's see, is the work with humans and the work with animals, is it balanced out? Do you tend more or towards the animals?
Yeah.
How's your practice?
Yeah, that's also a great question. I'm known as the animal communicator. However, I do every bit as much psychic medium work on all levels. So somebody can schedule me for a pack reading for a few of their pets. So we're talking with their cats, we're talking with their dogs that are here. Then all of a sudden I could be talking with their childhood sweetheart in spirit. I also call spirit heaven sometimes. We can be talking with their next door neighbor that's still alive, their deceased grandmother, the baby that's in their womb, the animals, a baby that they've lost. It really, the exact same process that I use to talk with animals is the same process I use to talk with beloved people that have passed. It's all energy, Mark. So, most scientific minded people will agree that energy never dies. So if energy doesn't die and it just transforms, then we can start to open up again, just crack that window, open that door a little bit, that if energy is energy, it is able to be accessed. It's a lot like thinking of it as the cloud. Nobody really quite understands the cloud, but we know we can download information from the cloud. I set an energetic intention and boom, the horses are out of the gate ready to talk, whatever their species.
Some mediums have physical tools like tarot cards. Can you talk a little bit about how this information comes to you? Do you have a physical tool that helps you? How does it come to you?
My physical tool is my brain that is often hopped up on a lot of sugar. So that's my only vice. I don't use tarot cards, although I don't use them professionally, I should say. I have my own. In fact, I was sitting here playing with an Alice in Wonderland deck when you popped onto Zoom. I don't need a tool. I can use them. I don't feel the need to. The information comes into me so quickly that someone just has to say a name, and really the conversation begins. And by conversation, I mean telepathic. So I'm looking at my dog Charlie on the floor right now. I can have a question, I wonder what Charlie thinks of this conversation, and he can send me an image in my mind. I can hear a word, I can feel something in my body, and that is the exact same process, whether we're talking about a cow, a sheep, a goat, a shark, cat, dog, bear, or human. And it's the same process whether they have passed over or are here. I have fun with tools, but I don't use them professionally. I don't need to. When I go to a psychic or medium, there's only one person who I go to that does use tarot or tarot, however you want to say it, simply because our intuition is so strong. I'll speak for myself here. my brain works so rapidly when I'm receiving informations. I'd rather just go on what I'm receiving than having any human created tool interfering with the process.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense. I have done psychometry for fun, the art of reading objects, which is when I was first starting out with psychometry. I took an online class, and I used to go to this market in St. Pete all the time, Old Southeast Market. My dogs and I used to go down there for like a morning bagel and whatever I got them. And I walked in one day. I knew the people, this is many years ago. And I said, does anybody have any dead people that they would like to talk to? And they laughed. They knew what I did for a living. You know, I wasn't being spooky about it. And I said, I need objects from these deceased people. And one of the girls that worked there gave me a necklace. And she actually gave me a photograph of a headstone. So obviously I knew from the headstone what the person's name was and his birth date and when he passed, but I didn't know anything else about him. And when I sat down, I held the necklace in my hand, and the energy just starts to heat up in my hand from whatever I'm holding. And I heard immediately in this deep, very serious man's gruff voice, "Don't assume I'm a woman." And the necklace belonged to her grandfather, who was a pretty macho guy. So I got the grandfather's life story, and then the headstone mark. It was wild. I don't know what I'm getting into, which makes it like this weird, wild game show all the time. So I look at this photograph of the headstone. I knew the man's name was Paul. I said, all right, Paul, you know, what would you like to share? What do you have to say? And I immediately saw Elmer Fudd, the cartoon character. I saw Elmer Fudd with the big rifle going, and the image just locked and loaded on my mind. Now, because I was new, I didn't charge anybody for it. It wouldn't be ethical until I knew I could actually do this. I went down to the market and I just said, just yes or no, was Paul a hunter? So that I knew I was on the right track. And she said no. And I went, oh, well, that's not good. I put the photograph down, didn't touch it for 2 weeks, sat down, tuned back into the photograph. Immediately, there's Elmer Fudd with his rifle. And I'm going, come on, man. You know, this has to be right. Anytime spirit, an animal, a human locks and loads on an image, word, sound, feeling, I know it's right. I just have to, like a detective, put it together. So I go down to the market and I said, I'm telling you, man, you know, he's got hunter all around him. She said, you want me to tell you? I said, just confirm this one piece. She says his 5 brothers were all hunters. He's the only one that wasn't a hunter. So then I said, okay, good. I do correctly have his spirit. I went back and just got a flood of information. I heard the Kenny Rogers song, The Gambler, and he was a Las Vegas card dealer. So his whole life story came in, as well as very beautiful, heartfelt messages that this woman had been waiting a lifetime to hear. Lots of fun, lots of comedy. I don't use tools. I can if I want to. I just don't feel the need. Honestly, it's just fun to have them come through my own body.
Mm-hmm. You talked about objects. Here's another obscure question.
Yes.
Does the energy that you feel from an object necessarily relate to the person it belongs to, or is there energy that comes from objects innately because all mass, all matter has energy?
Yeah. You know, I'll tell you.
And you pick up energy from inanimate objects that are not related to the person that owned it.
Yeah, you really are very psychically tapped into me, Mark, in a freaky way, because all of your questions are so brilliant. I bought a pair of earrings for myself the other day, a pair of estate earrings, and I had not had this question that you really just asked, which was, when I sit down to read these earrings, will I only pick up on the woman who owned these earrings, who has passed? Will I pick up on the people from the jewelry store that have polished them, from the salesperson, you know, from the son or daughter that brought them in to sell them? How will I know it's the energy of the person who owned these earrings? And can I get it confirmed? And when I purchased the earrings, I said, do you know who these earrings belong to? Just simply so that when I hear the story, I can go back and say, you know, is this what you know to be true? I'm very careful to tell people, don't feed the medium, you know, yes or no, can you confirm this? we'll be very careful. It's no fun to cheat. There's a lot of people, oh, you can look it up online, or you can do this. I'm sure there's people who do that, no doubt. And then they charge people money for it, which is horrifying, unethical. For me, it's no fun. It would be like, I'm looking at some beautiful artwork that I'm surrounded by. It would be like taking credit for these paintings. It's not my compliment to receive. I didn't do the work. And it's the same way about this. So inanimate objects have energy, such as keys, sunglasses, jewelry. Houses have energy. When I walked into the Women's Center in Tampa one time, it was my first time visiting there. I just stepped into the door in the threshold, and so many spirits went. I was overwhelmed, because that has a lot of historic significance, that building. And I said to the director at the time, whoa, this place is lit up with spirits. And she said, oh, you felt that? I've heard that from some people. So, really think twice before you shop at secondhand shops. If you do, make sure you sage the clothing or the furniture, whatever it is. I'm very careful. When I bought these estate earrings, the energy of them simply in the case wasn't just that they were pretty, but like lit up with love, with fun, with I hear, as I say, this party. This person was a big party here. So
And when you put them on, do you want to party?
When I put them on, I felt, and again, I enjoy jewelry, but I'm not a jewelry maniac. It's not something that I collect or obsess over. When I put these earrings on, I felt this shift, just this fun, energetic shift that went beyond me, that went beyond simply like, oh, I love elephants. I'm wearing this dress. I can tell you, when I put this elephant dress on, I was like, oh, that looks really nice. I'll buy it. Different from, oh, whoa, I feel special, wearing these earrings. Yeah. Houses, energy is everywhere in a room, Mark. You can walk into a room and say, think about realtors. I remember my ex-boyfriend and I going house shopping together, and we walked into a house, and boy, that house was lit up with so much love. And the people weren't home, and there weren't any family photos up, but the energy in there. And I said something to the realtor. I said, gosh, this must be one happy household. To which she was then able to confirm, oh yeah, this family is just, so well loved, and everybody's harmonious. You can walk into another place that's beautifully decorated, and you can't wait to get out of there.
Mm-hmm.
There's something colder. Energy is alive, for better or worse.
So our topic of the day is pets. Yes. So let's get back to pets.
Yes.
Do you feel more connected to some species than others? Personally, do you relate more to dogs, cats, and is there a difference on a consciousness level between them that you can categorize? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Are they distinct?
Yep, that's a great question. Well, I am a dog mom. I'm an aspiring cat mom. And I try to vary the term animal communicator and pet communicator, because most of us just think dogs and cats when we say pet communicator, but it is with all species. There's an energetic difference between species. Sometimes I can give you an example of the first time I spoke with a tiger, and the tiger straightened me up real fast because I had worked with so many, quote, house cats. And I was looking at a photograph of a tiger on my iPad, and I was laying back in my bed, and all of a sudden I heard very loudly and proudly and strongly, "Sit up, girl. I ain't no ordinary house cat." And I went, ooh. And I felt the energetic difference between talking with even a sassy, mischievous cat, between talking with a mighty powerful tiger. It's a different energy. Let me see if I could, between dogs and cats, I would say cats are, I don't know if I hate to say this or love to say this. I hate to say that cats do fall into the stereotype of being more willing to put me in my place in a fun way that I relish. There was a cat one time whose mom had a lot of questions for her, and I was talking with the cat before meeting with the person, and I got right down to business, Mark. I forgot my manners. You know, with you, hi, Mark, it's nice to meet you. Thanks for having me here. I don't go right to, why'd you buy that shirt? Why are you sitting in that chair? What'd you have for lunch? And I sort of did that with this cat, not that harshly, but I got right down to business. And the cat said, mind your manners, Shannon. I said, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. So cats are more likely to, I guess, demand respect. I don't notice such a big difference. I will say all of the animals have humor, no matter the species. Wild species, farm animals, domestic pets, brilliant humor, so much smarter, Mark, than people give them credit for. And it's both the good news and the bad news that our animals are thinking and feeling at depths that would blow people, that does blow people away, not would, that does. So it will forever, when you have a session where you talk with your pet or your animal companion, it will forever change your perspective on what their daily experience is, and hopefully inspire you to be much more mindful of what you are thinking about them, what you are saying to them and around them. So I'll leave it with that. And so you asked me, there's a lot of questions to be asked and a lot of stories to be told in what I just shared there, but energetic differences between the species, yes. Wild animals do have a stronger, more powerful energy. Humor across the board, no matter the species. I don't.
Give me some examples of the humor.
Yeah. Okay. There's so many of them. One of them was a couple hired me to talk with their dog, who's still here, still in body. I'll often say still here. And, you know, Shannon, can you find out what's wrong with the dog? Does she need to go to the vet? We're concerned. Does she need to go to the vet? I'm laughing, obviously, because it's a funny ending here. And I said to the dog, you know, how are you doing? You okay? She said, I'm fine. I'm fine. I don't need to go to the vet, Shannon. She told me what's wrong with her. I said, you don't need to go to the vet? What do you need? And the dog said, I need to go to Dr. Ruth. And I went, what? I was like, I'm losing my mind. And for those, you know, listeners who don't know, Dr. Ruth is the like 90-year-old sex expert who had best-selling books and a radio show, podcast, you know, whatever you want to call it now. And I thought, these people are going to think I've lost my mind. So I'm talking with the people via Zoom. And I said, your dog doesn't need to go to the vet. She says she needs to go see Dr. Ruth. And the people said, oh my God, Shannon, we were just talking about Dr. Ruth last night and how we need to have more sex. So, you know, immediate confirmation of something that sounds so insane. Because again, it begets many more questions, Mark. This is the rabbit hole of all rabbit holes. How does a dog know who the heck Dr. Ruth is? Legitimate question. Well, again, if we think of it as the cloud, information is out there to be had by you, Mark, by me, Shannon, by dogs, by cats, by dolphins, pigs. It is energy. And the conversations that we're having, like this dog's parents, you know, it's not that the dog speaks English or Spanish, French, German. It's that as we're talking, animals are forming images of what we're talking about. They're receiving the energy of what we're talking about. And the dog was able to send the message and the image of Dr. Ruth to me. So while we're speaking in English, they're speaking and communicating in symbols, in words, in feelings. So the people were laughing like crazy. I was getting ready to give them their money back, you know, saying, your dog wants to go see Dr. Ruth. I don't know if she's currently treating pets for sexual disorders, but good luck with that.
Yeah, I think the interesting part of that is how the dog can make the connection between the name of a person and a person who deals with sexual issues.
Oh yeah.
So that's pretty advanced thinking for a baby,
right?
A human baby. So
yeah, well, it's funny that you say that because, you know, I mentioned earlier that I also do baby readings, and the stuff, babies and animals are a very, very similar process. with the joy, the humor, and the wisdom that comes through. There's no filters on the mark. They're not concerned what they're going to say is going to offend someone. They're aware of what can hurt someone's feelings. So even when I have to give very, very direct messages, I try to do it in the most kind, loving manner possible, but communicate it directly. These people in this particular case had said Dr. Ruth. Okay. So it's not that the dog just pulled Dr. Ruth out of the atmosphere, although he or she could have. So it happens in both the way that you just said. For example, let's say that the couple was having a problem in their intimate life. Okay. And the couple did not say Dr. Ruth, but the dog needs for me to know that the reason mom or dad are fighting is because they're having, a problem with intimacy. The dog, knowing that I know who Dr. Ruth is, can plant that image in my mind.
Got it.
That happens all the time. In this particular case, the people happen to say her by name. Dog receives the information, sends it through my wheelhouse. It's all energy, almost like you think of the old-fashioned operators back in the day that used to have to patch the call through from this person to that person.
Lily Tomlin.
What do they call it?
Lily Tomlin, the most famous.
Yeah, Lily Tomlin, the comedian. It's a lot like that, where I'm the operator in the middle and I'm receiving and sending images from animals to people, both here and beyond. It is as much fun as it sounds.
Are you familiar with Neuralink? Elon Musk's company Neuralink, that's working on a brain implant. I won't go into it, but it is able to read our brain impulses, electrical impulses, and we'll be able to have those. Look it up, Neuralink.
Yeah.
They're working on it for humans. They've done it in a monkey and some pigs, but we'll be able to get that information like you do from them and translate it into English. I won't go further in there.
Well, that does bring up, of course, the tricky, that's wonderful that that's being developed, I guess. I don't know if I should say wonderful. It's interesting that it's being developed. That does, of course, talk about the level of sentience that animals have, and then what people are doing to them for our use and our benefit. Oh, brother, that's just a whole other, I think the scientists themselves would never sleep again, or maybe they would. Either way, it's fairly disturbing what people are doing in the name of science and research to benefit humans.
Sure, especially cosmetic research.
Oh, all of it, cosmetic research, products, medications, all of it. These are very, very deeply feeling, thinking creatures that are well aware of what's happening to them, including the animals at the shelters. Are they aware of that there's a euthanasia day, that their time is limited? Absolutely. And, I am willing to have the sad, difficult conversations with them. I've worked with some monkeys that have been researched on, and other animals. Yeah, I think it's something people should be more aware of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do look up, I get the information from them and the company and demonstrations that they've done, that they are very concerned about animal welfare and how they're doing their work. But look up the demonstration of the monkey playing Pong with the brain implant. Google it, and audience, check it out. It's amazing. He starts out playing with a joystick, and then he ends up, they disable the joystick. So he ends up playing Pong with his mind, moving it with his mind.
Animals are so much smarter and more sensitive than people realize. I mean, truly, truly on levels that should inspire all of us to become better people. Completely. You asked me earlier in the conversation way back about how long I've had these abilities and how I got started in these things. there's a line in my book where I said I had to clean out my life's litter box. And that's not just about getting sober. It's about really that expression of be the person your pets think you are. It comes to that level. I think one of the reasons that I'm able to receive the depth of messages that I do, and as quickly as I do, and as multifaceted as I do, is that I think and feel a lot like an animal does. Extremely sensitive to all the energy around me, to who's making who feel a certain way, to how people are perceiving and receiving their environment. It's no longer as easy for me to be in big crowds of people, for me to be in certain situations, for me to see how disconnected people are from nature and from animals. So I can certainly look up what you're talking about. And, if you're talking about something, it's actually implanted in them.
Yeah. It's a quarter size. It's implanted underneath the skull. They remove a piece of the skull. It's done with a robot. The operation is done with a robot, and they plant electrodes in different parts of the upper part of the brain.
Yeah.
And the first task is that's associated with this part of the brain is motor skills, so they can help people walk, vision, all sorts of things. Anyway, Neuralink. I don't want this to be about that. I want it to be.
No, it's interesting though, because, and I'll finish it with this, that, or at least on my side of it, that, when we say they're very concerned about animal welfare and they're implanting something in their skulls, those two things, those two things don't add up. You can't. My philosophy, Mark, is always, if we wouldn't do it to a human child, don't do it to an animal.
Well, they now have just gotten permission from the FDA to implant it in humans. So, but the
experiment on humans.
The difference is we can give consent. You
Right.
could argue,
exactly.
and they can't. So.
Exactly, Mark. Thank you for that, because that's exactly my point. Yeah. Woo, that's scary, scary stuff. Yeah.
So my dog Duncan is a boxer mix. He's a rescue when he was about 2 or 3 months old. And I was out walking with him, and he goes up to every human and sort of snuggles, leans on them and brushes against them like a cat would. But there are very few people, maybe 2 people ever, that he has not immediately gone up to. And the second or third time he's met this one neighbor, we just moved into a new neighborhood. He said, is he always this loving? And has he always been this loving? And how? And I thought about it, and I said, well, he was rescued at a really young age, and he's never had any real trauma. I didn't even let people, there's some people that roughhouse, especially with bigger dogs, and they get on the edge of abusive. It's right on the edge.
Yes.
And I never have let anybody even be rough with him. So he's just very open, and he'll react to some other alpha males. There's certain dogs, but otherwise he's not reactive with people. And I think it's because he has not been exposed to hardly any trauma. It's all been a loving environment. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it could be. Boy, each animal is so individual, just like people are. Why we have the reasons that we do things. A lot of times, I'm not saying this is what you're doing, a lot of times people project things onto animals. In fact, people will often say, and it drives me crazy because I'm a huge rescuer myself, adopt, don't shop, let's not create anymore, while so many are leaving the world unfairly, that each animal is so individual, has their own reasons for why they're doing things. Some people their animals have not been exposed to any trauma, and the animal still wants nothing to do with people. That could be because the person doesn't really want anything to do with people. It could be that the animal is protecting the person, and so therefore not going up and being social with other people. You are certainly a very friendly, outgoing guy. Just doing kind of a surface read on this right now, that because of your nature, you aren't feeling the need to block people out or keep people out of your space. Therefore, Duncan isn't. He doesn't feel a need to protect you, which then makes him feel that much safer going up and engaging with other people. I think you're really setting the tone with Duncan there on what's okay. I think it's phenomenal. Also, what you said is huge, that you don't let people mishandle him. And what a beautiful thing that you've done for him as his dad, that therefore he knows if he goes up and engages with people and somebody missteps, you're going to say something, do something, or intervene. And not enough pet parents do that. It's okay to say no. If somebody says, "Can I pet your dog?" Say, "No, thank you."
Can you pick up energy from the animals through the person? In other words, are you able to pick up energy from Duncan through me and my conversation and my relationship through him? So
yeah. Yep. Right now, if I want to, ask Duncan a few direct questions, such as, Duncan, how do you like being Mark's son? And then let's see what he says. How do you like being Mark's son? And I tend to look off in a different direction just to get a focus on the images they're sending me. So he said, very much, lots of fun. And then he says, "Well, why haven't I been a guest on the show? Like, would very much like to be a part of this with you." And he says, "Does this count, Shannon? Does this count? Am I a guest on the show right now with you guys talking about me? Does this count as me being a guest?" I said, "Well, I guess it does. Is there something that you would like Dad to know? What would you like him to know?" So I'll slow down here for a second, but the energy from animals comes in through very, very rapidly. So as I was just sharing with you, Mark, he's in my ears with all these things he wants to say and share. And then it's a matter of me being able to get them out to you, then answer your questions. Yes,
I think he might be laying down right behind me. Let me just see.
Yeah. So he's already
No,
saying,
he's not.
that he would make a fantastic backdrop. So Mark and I were talking about the backdrop that you have for your screen, that it would be great if Duncan was like, the angel on your shoulder, so to speak, in the background of you, Duncan's dad, in the background. He really would like to be included in your work. Definitely loves going up to people, meeting and greeting them. He's talking
How about female energy? He really seems drawn, like he'll snuggle with my partner Isabella. Before me. He'll go over to her 10 times for every one time he comes to me. So he's,
Okay.
and his former mom, he did the same thing. So he seems to be very tuned into female.
Well, women in general tend to be more open energetically. Women are the ones signing up for self-help workshops, reading the books about feelings, or tend to be more of my clients. I really would like to have more male clients. I do get them, but women energetically tend to be more open to giving, receiving affection, talking about personal things. So, without getting too personal onto Isabella here, because she's not a part of this conversation, let's just see what Duncan says about. He says he's saying, this is interesting, I've not heard it put this way before, but he's acknowledging that women can be a lot more work with having the range of emotions that we have, but men can be a lot more work in trying to bring out their emotions. So it's almost like women are constantly expressing emotions, which is a lot of work, and men need to be expressing more emotions. So that's like a different job to bring men out of their shells. And do you drink a lot of coffee, Mark?
No, I drink a lot of water.
You drink a lot of water. Okay.
And tea.
Tea. Okay, so it was tea. I mistook that for coffee because he just kept showing this, but I knew it wasn't alcohol. And then it was something that gave you energy. So that's a perfect example of how I shouldn't, and we're not doing a proper reading here the way that we're doing it, but project onto what that was. I need to ask, what's Dad drinking? I saw this. I saw that it gave you energy. I made the assumption that it's coffee. You can correct me and tell me that it's tea. But they will oftentimes, animals, when I say they, draw my attention to something that their person needs help with. If their person is having a health issue, they'll let me know that. If they're having a health issue with themselves, they'll let me know that. And they'll let me know what will help. It might be dad's drinking too much tea and therefore he needs to offset it with drinking more water, which you're already doing. If they're having an issue with themselves, it can be something like this food. In fact, one of the first dogs that I ever read, Mark, well, had been teaching my kindness to animals programs at a school, and the teacher hired me to do animal communication. She said, boy, my dog's just acting really aggressive and I'm not sure why. What's going on? I asked the dog, what's happening? Are you not feeling well? The dog immediately shows me a skull and bones. I said, whoa, well, that's the poison sign. What is poisonous in your environment? The food. It turned out that the dog was eating Old Roy, which happens to be, just garbage. You may as well be feeding them gasoline. Such a poor quality food, number one. But number two, at the time, it was also on the recall list for having phenobarbital in it, the euthanasia drug. So the dog was literally eating poison. So that's number one. So the dog got through to me a health challenges he was having that was causing a behavioral challenge. A lot of the times animals are unfairly getting labeled a jerk and, much worse, not family friendly language here. And they're having a medical issue. And, animal has an accident in the house. Oh, what a misbehaved, bad dog, bad cat. Oh, blah, blah. People are, it's just, I don't want to poo-poo humans here because they're the ones who pay my bills and hire me. So I don't want to insult the entire species, but animals really aren't the jerks people make them out to be. Legitimately, things are happening. Either they're picking up on the emotional stress of the household that's now causing them to have an accident in the house. Somebody might be harming them behind the scenes that someone isn't aware of. They're having a medical issue. Don't unfairly label them. And of course, animals in the shelter, my gosh, with all the stress that they're under constantly. The one local shelter, the animals are in their kennels 23 hours a day because they're understaffed. So if you walk by one of those kennels and go, oh, that animal messed in his kennel, bad dog. The amount of expectations that are projected on animals that we don't have for ourselves and that we shouldn't have for ourselves or animals. It's crazy. So I know I got off task there with your question about Duncan, but if you have some questions for me about Duncan, I'd be, leaving Isabella out of it because she's not here. I'm happy to answer those.
Well, why don't you just share any other information that you're getting from him?
Yeah.
Through me.
Let's see what he wants.
Are you back to technique? Are you getting it through me, or is he coming through directly to you?
Yeah. Okay. That's a very good question. And when I'm in a session, I can be getting information from the animal. I can be getting information from my own animals about Duncan. I can be getting information from, again, spirit, God, my own guides, depending on how weird you want to get here. So information can come from a variety of sources during a session. The way that I'll know who it's coming from is how it feels to me. Okay. Just like when I'm in a room full of people, you could have me blindfolded. I'm going to hear different voices. Oh, that's Mark. Oh, that's Isabella. Oh, that's my next door neighbor. That's this. Different personalities everybody has. So different traits and characteristics will identify who it is that's sending me the energy. Duncan, and here's where you can confirm as Duncan's dad what his energy is like. He's definitely a very, very happy guy. Loves to be social. He's actually giving a head nod to how organized you are. And he would really just like to be included more in your work life. He finds it fascinating that you get to know a side of people that other people don't, would very much like to be included in your work and serve as your muse. So when he's with you, you're talking about receiving signs. Earlier you asked, if people are more, you asked a great question. You said, when people are more emotionally attached to their animals, are they then more likely to receive signs? Correct? When you asked that question. Yes, I can answer that a little bit better now. Yes, because you will be less likely to write it off. So that if you're sitting there having fun, you're preparing for a show like the show today, and all of a sudden you go, oh, that sounds fun, to ask that question. And it might feel a little out of the ordinary for you to ask me this question that's just dropped into your mind. That could have come from Duncan. He can be sending a message from his mind to you, from his heart to you. Just like when we talked about the earrings earlier, when I put them on, and was, oh, what's this? What's this energy? That is just a little bit different from how I usually feel. That's exactly what animals can do for us, or our deceased loved ones, animal or people. So I would encourage you to be paying more attention to things that are coming through you that absolutely can be coming from Duncan with relation to your work. You mentioned how much he enjoys going up and meeting people and greeting them. I think he's doing that for a variety of reasons. Number one, he knows you love to engage with people. So it's fun for dad. You enjoy when he does that with people, right? Yeah.
Mhm.
And you feel very proud of him when he's going up and giving that love. You literally are getting to improve other people's day, Mark, by allowing Duncan to go up and give love to all these people that cross your path. So it's very rewarding to both of you.
Mhm.
People that he was not going up to, yeah, that's just a subtle, like, not necessarily wanting to be touched by them. When I work with shelters or veterinarians' offices, groomers, anybody like that, and even just pet parents, I say be very, very mindful of the energy that you have when you are touching an animal and the thoughts that you're thinking. They love to relieve our stress, but that doesn't mean that we need to give them the worst version of ourselves. If you just had a fight with somebody, you just come home from the worst day at work, maybe take a few deep breaths before you start petting your animals. Cesar Millan has this thing, the dog whisperer, where he says it comes from one end of the leash down to the other end of the leash. Whatever we're feeling, it's being conveyed through the leash. We don't need a leash to convey that. It's just simply what we're feeling in our hearts or thinking in our minds is going from our bodies to our animals' bodies. You are giving out such a welcoming vibe to people that Duncan picks up on that. And that's his energy. And he knows that you're going to protect him. So he feels very safe with you. I have Mayor Puppy Pants sitting here on my lap, and everybody hears about Mayor Puppy Pants all the time. He was the first dog mayor of St. Pete many years ago. People think when they meet him that he's going to be, and give them all this love. That's not his style. If you are not me or you're not a child, he's not really so interested. He loves children. He loves meeting other dogs. That's his personality style and preference. And quite honestly, I get more excited when I meet children than when I meet adults. So we share that in common. Our pets can have a lot of the same traits that we do as well. And he knows a bad guy when he sees one. So I can tell you many stories about that.
So as we start to wind down here, and I definitely want to have you back, not just to read Duncan, but to talk about hundreds of other things. What sort of setting do you prefer and find the most rewarding to practice your craft, if I can call
Sure.
it?
Yeah, it is.
Do you like one-on-ones? What about small groups of people to do readings for individuals within that group? What's your
Sure.
ideal setting?
Yeah. And the word craft is appropriate because it is an art form. I am the messenger, so I'm receiving messages. I pride myself on don't censor the message, whether it's a difficult message.
Except today with me, you were getting some PG stuff in there. Go ahead.
Well, if somebody's not present, so there's many different ways to answer this, but if someone's not present for the session, such as your partner, and I don't know what direction something's going to go in, I don't want to be bringing up information that's too personal about that person. And then, Mark, I can very quickly start reading her energy. And yeah, so I don't want to do that. So I do like to be prepared for that, to know what it is that I'll be doing.
Sorry, I interrupted.
Yeah, I'm getting off track now. On the question was,
it was about ideal
yeah,
setting to practice your craft.
Okay.
Sorry.
So on the ideal setting, I like, well, she's definitely gonna have to edit this part. I don't know that there's an ideal setting. People often think that their animals have to be present for the session, and that's not true. So I have clients around the world, and I don't meet in person often the wild bear I'm going to be talking with, or the tiger at a zoo. I'm not sitting there petting them. They're not in my living room. I also communicate with animals and people that have passed. So they're not present in my living room in the physical form. So in that regard, it doesn't matter where anybody is. And I do most of my sessions via video conference, most of them. And even when I tell people that your animals can be eating, sleeping in the tub, or out at a nightclub, the process is the same because it's a telepathic process. People will often still try to hold on to, their dog or cat. Here, hold on, sit still. Shannon's here. Focus. I go, let them go, let them breathe. Let them be happy and free, because it is a telepathic process, which is how I can talk with an animal that's deceased, which is how I can talk with an animal that's in the middle of surgery. I've done that. I have so many stories that want to get out, Mark, but including people will call me for emergency reads. They're in a panic about something that's happening with their pet. I had a dog recently, somebody called me about and said, oh my gosh, I took him to the emergency vet, and the emergency vet says, it's okay, just take him home. And I said, if you do that, your dog's going to die. And the dog then told me he'd eaten a whole bunch of cat litter. It was causing a blockage and he was going to die. So I said, take your dog back to the emergency vet and tell that vet you're not leaving there until he opens up your dog's belly, like performs the surgery. Once they did that, the vet amazingly said, which I was shocked, confirmed, wow, if we didn't do the surgery, he would have died. Emergencies happen like that. The energy comes through very quickly. My mind works very, very, very quickly. So in terms of an ideal setting, it's not under the gun, but I do work under the gun all the time, where I don't have time for chit chat or, social foreplay with like, what's your favorite treats and what's your favorite toy and how'd your day go? And if we have time to do that, I can do that. But sometimes it's, Shannon, I don't know why my cat can't stop throwing up. What's going on? And I go, the images come through. I feel it in my body immediately, where there's a medical issue in the body, and then the people can confirm it. Or I will ask them, I say, don't tell me the name brands of the food that they're on or the medications they're on. So that way my human biases don't jump in. I'll say, is your cat taking medication? Yes or no? Yes. Is your cat on around 3 or 4 medications? Yes. Okay. I say, focus on the first medication your cat's taking. I know nothing, Mark, at this point of what the medication is or why they're taking the medication. Just focus on medication number 1. Then I go to the cat and I say, how does this medication make you feel? Oh, it makes me so tired. Shannon, makes me so tired. No quality of life. Okay. I say that to the person. Yeah, man, it does. It knocks them out. They're just zonked. Number 2, what does this do for you? Oh God, I feel so sick when I take it. Number 3, I feel a lot better on. Number 3. Number 4, number 4, it's the right medication, wrong dosage. All of these things, it's information that comes through me that then the people can confirm. Honestly, it can save an animal's life and a person's life. So I've had animals that start misbehaving to get the attention on their person. Something's wrong with their person, especially if it's an elderly person. Their medication's off. They need to get to the doctor. These essential oils that they're using are toxic. They need to dial back the amount that they're using or the type that they're using, whatever it is. And if I'm getting off on a tangent here, but if you're a smoker, quit. Because a lot of people don't even know that their animals get third-hand smoke. Have you heard of that? I didn't even know that was the thing, Mark, and the animals taught me.
Why would it be third hand and not second hand?
It is. They get secondhand smoke and third hand smoke, which is the smoke. And I'm talking about vaping too, whether it's marijuana, vaping, cigarette smoke, nicotine. The smoke that's in the furniture, the walls, the carpeting, the clothes, that's third-hand smoke.
Hmm.
You want a reason to quit whatever your bad habit is, look at your pet's face. And know how much they will be happier and healthier, and so will you. And the number one gift that we can give our pets is a happy, healthy us. Make their jobs a lot easier.
You know, this the way you read and the information you get sounds a lot like stories about Edgar Cayce. Are you familiar with Edgar Cayce?
I am. I was at the Edgar Cayce Center a few years ago, seeing some great speakers. That's one of my goals when my book is published, to be looking for a publisher, written the manuscript to speak at the Edgar Cayce Center. It's very rapid. Sometimes I do channel. I don't identify myself as a channeler, but when I'm connecting with loved ones that have passed, people often tell me, oh my God, you sound just like my mother. Oh my God, you look just like my sister did. She used to always move her hands that way. Or you speak with the cadence in which my grandfather spoke. It's spooky in a good way. I do house calls as of now, as of the taping of this, in the Sarasota, Tampa Bay, Florida areas for an additional cost, obviously. I do small group events, speaking engagements. I will speak to large groups. I just encourage people that once you do this, you will forever be inspired to be a better pet parent if you're doing it right. You will hear a lot of funny things. You will hear a lot of sentimental, sweet things, and you may hear some things that are to work on. That if you've been looking for a reason to leave that toxic relationship, switch jobs, improve your health, now is the time, because our pets' lives are so short. We might think we have all the time in the world, but what better time than now to make these positive changes to improve our relationships with them, their health, our own health. It's unlimited. Edgar Cayce was unlimited. I'm constantly learning and growing, Mark, as a communicator, as a psychic medium. I recently got an endorsement by Dr. Deborah King, who is published by Hay House. She's a multiple New York Times bestselling author. And that woman is a force of nature in terms of her abilities to just seamlessly cross between worlds. There is so much beyond what we see, hear, and feel as people that, as weird as people think what I do, it gets so much weirder and wilder that I joke with skeptics, like, giddy up, saddle up. If you want to poke fun at what you think I'm doing, wait until you see the stuff that I'm doing that you don't even know about yet. That is so much fun. You can either join the party, Mark, and get on board that this is happening, whether you believe it or not, or you can be left out. And we don't need to strap things to animals' brains or hearts or test on them. Just simply learn how to do it yourself, how to develop your own intuition, take off your own blinders. There's no need to torture animals to understand that they do see, hear, feel in levels that are way further developed than us as people. We're not the more evolved species by a long shot.
Yeah. Speaking of forces of nature, you are definitely a force of nature. And I have really enjoyed this conversation, and I look forward to future ones. And when we do, let's see, what's our time like? Maybe I'll end with this story that I haven't shared on the podcast, and you're inspiring. So my mom and I had a strained relationship when she was alive. And on a birthday for my stepdaughter, I offered to go buy a birthday cake. And I go into Sam's, I'm looking at the birthday cakes. My mom and I had not communicated much at all since her death. And I'm looking at the birthday cakes, and I don't see one that looks like my stepdaughter. And I hear my mom's voice clear as a bell. There's one with roses on it. I love roses. Get that one. And of course, her rebellious child, me, says, well, it's not your birthday. Because that kind of response would have been very typical. It had yellow roses on it. And she goes, just get it. She'll like it. And I got it and took it to my stepdaughter for her birthday. And on the way over there, I heard, I had a vision of the top of the cake, and on it was writing, "Happy birthday, Missa." And my mom's nickname for my stepdaughter was Missa. It was Marissa was her name. So I had that put on the cake. And I did, it was the closest connection that I had had with my mom since she had passed, or maybe before. And it was such a strong communication. I had to go stand off to the side for a minute to collect myself. So I took the cake back, and stepdaughter, my wife at the time, immediately knew what it was about and where the message was coming from. And my former wife checks the date, and it was a year to the day that my mom had passed. So it was definitely her really coming through really strong, and a cool experience.
I have chills as you were telling that story. And as I said to you, Mark, earlier, you are very tapped in. The questions that you're asking me, it's just, we're all very, very connected. And with your mom, I can see your mom's spirit coming in with your story. So very, very proud of the work that you're doing, like beaming with pride, in the equivalent of like handing out your business card to everybody in spirit. A very attractive woman also, took a lot of pride in her appearance, and so much love for you. Certainly regrets not having expressed more pride in you. Very hard on you, very hard on you. It's very hard on herself as well. But, before I go into reading your mom here, your mom's energy is so accessible right now for us to talk to, simply by, well, number one, all you have to do is say your mom's name and she'll show up. But because of you acknowledging this experience that you had with the cake, she says she was letting you have your cake and eat it too, with all of these multiple connections that she's giving you, and how proud she is of you for sharing this story here in the podcast, because it does make you vulnerable. It does add your own personal touch onto it. And your mom, boy, she really does feel like a perfectionist. And lots and lots of love for Duncan and his antics, how much joy that brings her to, getting a bird's eye view of that. Your story is such a perfect example, Mark, of how our loved ones are available for us whenever we need them. You don't need a medium. You do not need to hire me for your loved ones to know when you're thinking about them, when you're missing them, when you're loving them. They feel it immediately from your heart to theirs, from your mind to theirs. The way that I come in handy is facilitating two-way conversation, getting questions answered, facilitating it two-way back and forth. And it is why a lot of the ones with the sense of humor come to me, because my background is also in humor. I'm a humorist with my nonprofit, Just Humor Me. So your mom feels a lot like the life of the party, but the fact that you acknowledge what happened means your signs can that much more naturally multiply for you. When we say, yes, I know this is you, that gives them, it's like you went from having a door cracked open to, come on in, mom, come on in, dad, whoever it is that you're missing. And that's up to us how much we want to let them in, but trust that they're there. Yeah, all the time. And our animals. Yeah.
Very cool. And I certainly didn't expect your response, but thank you for that. And let's go ahead and wrap up.
Yeah.
How can people best connect with you? No pun intended. Literally.
Now I'm dying to chit chat with your mom. Yes. So my website, shannonspring.com, SHANNON, spring, like the season, SPRING.com. And all of my handles on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok are at Mayor Puppy Pants, MAYOR Puppy Puppy Pants, Pants, at Mayor Puppy Pants. All of those links are on my website, shannonspring.com, and you can book a reading, private reading, or event directly there. You are just such a delight to talk with, Mark. I could talk to you and Duncan and your mom and everybody else that wants to come through to talk to you. Boy, are you in the right business, what you do.
Great. Well, I love the interviewing because I'm so curious about everything. So I really have enjoyed this conversation, and let's pledge. Hopefully, you'll want to come back and do some more discussions. We'll bring Duncan on, and
Yes.
and I'll certainly include you in some other activities. So
Yes, I would love that. I would love it, and I can't wait to meet the physical form of Duncan.
good. All right. Thanks so much. Thanks, everybody. And let me just close here. So thanks to Shannon for joining me today on the podcast to talk more about her fascinating experiences as a pet communicator and psychic. To learn more about her work, please see her contact information that she mentioned, but we'll also have down in the show notes below. Thanks for tuning in to another episode, and remember to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for other episodes.